G'day, guys. I was just joined by Ryan Brown, who took the 30nators to the Utah Open and went 5 wins and a single loss, and his loss was to the bloke who won the event. So, an absolutely stellar performance. Ryan and I break down every round. We talk about his list in details and where it deviates from mine, and some considerations on how you can adapt the 30-nator list to your playstyle. And then we also talk about ways that you can develop that list further with what we've both learned from our various experience running the 30nators. So if you're enjoying this 30nator train that we're on and you enjoy talking about this off-meta, interesting, unique take on the World Eaters, then this video is for you. Let's get stuck into it.
Look for the blood god.
Ryan, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your late night to come on the channel and have a chat. I know it's midnight there for you at the moment, so I appreciate you staying up nice and late to have a chat to me and the people who tune into the channel. So we wanted to talk about the Utah Open, which you've just come back from, winning 5 games and only losing a single game. And you were running the hashtag 30nator list. So a list, obviously, I am very, very excited whenever I see somebody putting up the wins with that list, because it's just a great thing to see. So congratulations on your results. Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself, any clubs you're associated with, and tell us a little bit about the event.
Well, my name is Ryan Brown. I live in Boise, Idaho. I've actually lived up here for about 3 years. I was living in Texas before that, and I was bouncing all over the place in the military before that. And I've actually only been involved in 40K for the last, I'd say, 3-4 years, competitively too. I got in towards like mid 9th edition. It was during COVID, and I had a friend sent me like a whole bunch of, hobby stuff. He sent me like his 9th edition hardback book, and I'm like, this is cool. All right, I can get into this. And, one thing led to another. The Black Templar box came out, and I'm like, okay, this is cool. And then, of course, the World Eaters came out at the end of the 9th, and I'm like, this is amazing. So that was, that was fun. I kind of took them into 10th edition, playing them, and then I, been kind of picking up CSM on the side. There's a lot of, overlap there that's, been, just been kind of fun. But no, 10th edition has been actually a blast. 9th edition was, kind of wonky. But like our meta up here in Boise is actually like really blowing up. There's some really, really good players up here. So it's like we're like kind of a bit of a Shark Tank. Like we're a pretty small community, but the guys that are up here, it's like they kick butt. So it's like kind of forged me into a good player, and it's been fun, getting into the competitive, side of the, I never thought that I'd be like a, super competitive player in it. Like I always, I liked the hobby first. I liked, to paint and do the miniature thing, but like, I don't know, the more you play the game, the more I like, this is fun. You go to tournaments, you could, you go with your mates, stay in hotels, get beers afterwards, and it's like I've met so many like really cool, good people.
Absolutely.
In the scene,
I know exactly how you feel in Melbourne. We're a very small community as well. Like especially compared to some US cities, like we're a relatively small community, but we're also got some really, really high quality players. So I know what you mean by the Shark Tank. And I also completely agree that the social element of 40K is so addictive that you end up attending tournaments and participating and wanting to get better so that you can continue to participate. But it's primarily driven by the fact that, you go for beers and dinner afterwards, you hang out with your mates, you get to do a little bit of travel. So, I completely agree. Are you associated with any clubs or anything like that, or are you just sort of a bit of a lone wolf kind of guy?
No, there's just me and some guys up here. We're in a club called, Veteran Vindictus. We're just, a bunch of vets that just, played up here, and, I don't know. I mean, we played the hobby first, but then we were like, oh, we're in the military too? You were in the military too? Yeah. And so, we kind of made it a thing, but like, we're not like a very serious club. We're just, we like to have fun. I mean, we're pretty sweaty. It's like, I'd be lying if I didn't say that like my list came from, the guys that I play up here, especially on my team where I have like a tall player that plays, Riptides and, and Breachers, super cagey. I have another friend that plays AdMech and he plays, all the Cataphron Breachers, with all that nonsense. So it's all just like Overwatch, cagey, shooty, nonsense. And so it's like, as a World Eaters player, I'm like, guess I'm dead. If I'm bringing like, Berserkers or 8-bound, and so I don't know. I mean, I've obviously been, following your channel for a long time too as a World Eaters player, and I'm like, Dean's onto something over here. Dean's been cooking, and I'm
That
like,
Terminator armor, that tactical dreadnought
it,
armor will withstand some Overwatch, and they'll still mess you up.
I mean, you'll laugh when I tell you it's like the lists that I went into in Utah were just like completely, mass just horde. I want to shoot you to death, and literally all I did was just throw the Terminators at them, and it was like they couldn't punch through it. It was like getting that turn one charge and just keeping them in their backfield, and it's like, okay, yeah, like eventually they'll chew through 10-man brick of Terminators, but it's going to cost them a lot of movement and a lot of like resources to throw into that. And meanwhile, I still have 2 more and Angron, where I'm like, it pretty much is a list that just smothers people. It's just like a deal with this list, and a lot of people couldn't do it. So when I threw it into my buddies, AdMech army and Tau army, it was really more of an experiment to be like, is this going to work? I mean, because it's like I have other things, and it's like these guys are, kicking my ass. With if I play World Eaters, it's like, and I go up against these guys in a tournament, it's like, it doesn't go well. My 8-bound and my Berserkers, it's like I run out of stuff too fast. But I was like, let's see if this works. Let's just put 30 Terminators on the field and see if see if there's anything to it. And I beat both of them, and it was very, very frustrating for them. And they were like, "This list is toxic." And I'm like, right, and like Riptides and like 100 Breachers and like 2 units of Breachers with Overwatch every turn. Like, yeah, that's definitely not toxic, but
I know exactly what you're talking about. The amount of times that I beat somebody who's running just the most toxic top of the meta stuff, and they look at the 30 naders and say that I'm toxic, and it's like, nobody else is running 30 Terminators, everybody else is running your shit.
Right. Well, I mean, it's also like, as a World Eaters player, we have like 5 units in our entire roster, so it's just like, well, I guess we'll try Terminators, and it's like, turns out it works, but hey.
Absolutely.
The Warhammer community suffers from some of the most prohibitively expensive essentials in the world, especially Australian content creators. Every single day, Dean wants to create content, but he can't. Suffering from old, worn-out brushes, expensive model kits, and costly software and equipment he can't endure much longer. Just look at this dirty paint water. Would you drink this? Would you let your child? Even a small monthly donation can help provide Dean with clean paint water, basic tools for survival, and access to life-saving information and education. So please, follow the links in the description below and find out how you can sponsor a mad cunt like Dean today and end the suffering. Suffering that is cruel, unsustainable, and your fault.
So tell us a little bit about the event itself. So the size, how many players in attendance, how many rounds, what the missions were, what the terrain was like, that sort of stuff.
It was about 120 players, 125. It was a decent size, yeah, and it's like, I mean, it was a lot of like really good players too. So it wasn't like, a super major, like LVO, where it's, you have like, a good chunk of good players, but like a big, like this is like, these were all like big teams in Utah and stuff like that. Like it's blowing up in the Utah, Idaho, Colorado area. So it's like awesome to see, but like it makes for like, even at 100, player tournament, it's like almost every person you run into is a really good player. and we use GW terrain, so it's it obviously helps. You can bring Angron, he'll be able to like kind of get around corners and stuff like that, which which helped. I probably wouldn't bring him like you said if I was playing on like WTC, where it's like you lose too much movement trying to get him around, and it's like people can play around it, but it's like GW terrain, it's it works very well. You can hide Terminators, but you can also get Angron out and over things, and then get turn 1 charges, which is like fantastic.
Yeah.
But aside from that, we ran the whole gamut. It was I think the Purge the Foe player I played against was the guard player, and he ran. There was 2 Earthshakers in his list, but the rest was just all the troops, all the Cadians, and the Tempestuses, and it was just, going against it. I'm just like looking at it, and he had like, a giant box full of guys, and I'm just like, oh my god. I had just played Green Tide, the guy that won the game before that, so I'm like, come on, please. Like, am I just going to be playing Horde lists this entire weekend? And it's like my last day. I played Green Tide.
Terminators don't mind versus Horde. Terminators will they'll slash through troops like.
Well, that was the funny thing too. Is like I'm everybody I'm sure saw I'm playing World Eaters. Good, like those guys are really easy to shoot off the board. And I show up and I'm like, well, here's my list. It's 30 Terminators. Good luck with this. It's funny, like you explain to people, and I'm like, I'm not a gotcha player. I do say, like Lord Invocatus will give 2, infantry units scout, and I'll tell them, I'm like, it'll probably be one of the Terminators, right? I'll tell them that.
Yeah.
They'll move 6 inches, and I can give 2 inches of extra for the blessing roll, and then I can get an auto 6 and stuff like that. You'd be surprised the amount of people still don't screen and still are like that look of surprise on their face where I'm like, yes, I did just, scout them 6 and then I moved them 7 and then I auto advanced them 6. And now I'm charging, you on turn 1. And they're like, I didn't know Terminators moved that fast. Yeah. I was like, World Eaters they're built different. So
they are definitely built different. I equate them, they're almost like Sanguinary Guard in their speed because they're gonna get like a 13-inch move to depending on whether you're using the blessings and stuff.
Yeah,
that's not a Terminator. That's something else.
No, and it's funny with this list too. It's like it's kind of the only World Eater list where it's almost like you can throw a unit out there turn 1, and you're not like screwing yourself. Like you throw a unit of 8 pound out there turn 1, one makes it. Yeah, you might kill something, but that is gone, right? It's going to just blown off the board almost immediately, right?
Yeah.
Terminator, like they got to invest a heavy amount of resources to kill it, and then it's like most of my games, I still have about 3 or 4 of the first still involved. Turn 2, and they couldn't lift it, and then by then it's just like they can't make up primary anything. You're just scoring points, and it's like fantastic. So.
Yeah, there's something to be said for just shoving them in your opponent's face early and just being like, chew on this while the rest of my army goes out and starts achieving the missions and stuff, and they're too busy gummed up with a Terminator unit. You can even do that with 2 units in the first turn if you really wanted to.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
So
Angron kind of big on the list because while I can get 1 Terminator, pretty much almost guaranteed with the auto advance 6, and a lot of times I'm like, if I can make this charge, I'll spend to get that auto advance 6 in there. But Angron makes it so that you can almost follow up with a different unit, and if it's an Angron and a 10-man Terminator brick, it's like that's a lot for an opponent to have to deal. That's like a tough decision to make. It's like I have to deal with this, or I have to deal with this 10-man brick. And most times than not, that's too much of a poor decision for them to make, and it's like they flub it, It's just not something that people are used to dealing with, to be honest with you.
Yeah. The meta hasn't really adapted to it yet,
Not yet. That's why I'm scared. It's like we're gonna for sure be responsible for getting price hikes on these Terminators.
Yeah, if that does happen, I will be issuing an apology to the World Eaters community because
At least we had fun for a bit, Dean.
oh yeah, we had fun. I'm still having fun.
Oh, for sure.
Blog for the Blood God exclusive high quality dice. Blog for the Blood God exclusive high quality dice. Blog for the Blood God exclusive high quality dice. Hi, I'm Dean Simbeck, President and CEO of Blog for the Blood God's exclusive high-quality dice warehouse and emporium. Due to a shipping error, I'm currently overstocked with Blog for the Blood God exclusive high-quality dice, and I'm passing the savings on to you! Roll 9-inch charges, pass invulnerable saves, roll high for damage, and score lots of hits. Check out the links in the description of this video to pick up your set today. Tell us a little bit about your list, because you've mentioned a few elements there that are things that I haven't taken in my lists historically, things like Lord Invocatus and Angron.
Yes.
My reasoning is mainly around the WTC terrain,
Right.
is the reasoning behind that. But tell us about your list from top to bottom, and we'll talk about sort of where it differs, and then we'll go into just a brief recap of each one of your games.
Yeah. Well, obviously with GW terrain, it's like bringing Angron is definitely something that you should always do. Like sometimes I look at a list, where I have 435 extra points to spend, but then you're kind of surprised when you're like, okay, yeah, like I'm getting a few of these extra things. Like it almost usually is like Karn and 10-man Berserker in a Rhino and then a few other things, but I'm like, but I'd rather have Angron. I'd rather have Angron because that's just another thing. When I played the Green Tide army, the one where I messed up because he went first, and so he was able to pretty much push commandos in my face that I had to chew through, and then by then it was like he'd already moved up the board, and I just couldn't punch through all of it.
Yeah,
I was being too cute with Angron, where I was just like, okay, I can probably shoot and fight my way through this first screen. What I should have done is sometimes Angron is just something that you just send into their backfield turn one. And it's like if they go first, it stops them from being able to continue to push. It's like now they have to divert resources, especially if they're a melee army, to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, he's just too valuable. I mean, and it's like I brought him back, I think twice over the weekend. So it's like, when Angron comes back, it's like now you're playing with 2,435 points.
Yeah.
Which, the only other army can do that's like Gene Stealer cults, and so it's like, it creates that problem.
Right,
Invocatus,
so you've got Angron and Invocatus. What,
Invocatus,
any other characters, or?
No, just Invocatus, because Invocatus gives that, that turn one threat where it's like, just telling your opponent that like I can scout 6, it obviously changes. I feel like if you don't bring in Invocatus, it like you're almost not stuck, but it doesn't give you that turn one threat that you kind of want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like because if an opponent will give that to you, it's like, it makes the game go so much easier. I'm starting to actually like play without Invocatus and seeing how it goes, and just seeing like being a little bit more cagey and like, maybe not, because good players will know how to like counter against a turn one charge. It's like a lot of players will probably be like, oh, I know how fast these things move, I'm not going to let this happen, so maybe I got lucky over the weekend and then they let me do it, but I don't foresee that happening. So I mean, Invocatus, he's good, he provides that threat, but I don't think he's necessary. I mean, other than that, he kind of runs around the board, and I mean, obviously having something that moves 12 to 14 inches by itself to go tag stuff or to like, pick up the secondary.
Well, I
if you need
mean,
him
one
to.
of the good things about Invocatus, and like you just said, is that because he does project that turn one threat, your opponent actually has to deal with it. Now, a lot of opponents can deal with it, but either way, whether they can or they can't, the fact that you're able to force them to deal with it, like they might go, okay, we're going to put all of our scouts out. Haha, we've blocked your turn one. And then you go, yes, but you've also just fed me all of your scouts. So now turn one, I can send jackals and berserkers and small things out, kill all their scouts. And then on turn 2, you've got nothing to block my rapid ingresses. Whereas normally that's what they would want to use scouts for, is blocking rapid ingress. So having Lord Invocatus forces them to use their resources to stop you from doing something. That's value in itself.
I mean, he is invaluable. I mean, he is as much as a staple of this list as Angron, I think. I mean, you could make the argument to drop either one of them and still, have a game plan, but like bringing the both of them, they're both like valuable tools that like give you, kind of a leg up. But aside from those two, I mean, it's, I have the three jackals, to obviously, one for the home objective and the other two to like, jump out and grab something early. They're not the best as far as like, contesting other, early game trade pieces, but they do hit surprisingly hard that people kind of underestimate. Like they're not cultists. So it's like you can throw a jackal at something and they're like, oh, okay. Spawn are just obviously everybody knows World Eater Spawn are just the best, 70 points investment you can ever make in the game, just from the 4-up Field of Pain, and just for how fast they are and just able to like go and grab, they're just secondary machines, they're monsters. And aside from that, like, I mean, the loadout, I'd actually do the same loadout that you do with the combi weapons on the Terminators, the autocannons, or the chain cannons, and that's pretty much it. Like that's the list. It's pretty.
So you've got
Terminators.
So you got no 8-bound at all of any variety.
No 8-bound. Nope.
Yeah, that's wild. So the way that I've been doing it is I've been, instead of Lord Invocatus, I've been bringing multiple units of just regular 8-bound, and that way you still sort of have that scouting presence.
Sure.
But then you can also use their reroll ones to wound aura, which really pumps up the damage on those Terminators. But if you've got Angron in the list and you're getting those reroll hits, you're probably pushing the damage capacity of those Terminators higher than anything that they would need to kill anyway. Yes. So it's not a big problem.
I mean, it's funny how much it turns into a shooting list. I mean, I was on stream on my first game, and I was getting laughed at in the chat where they were like, is this World Eaters player doing Overwatch right now? And it was like, my Terminator pick was on turn 2. They were like right in front of Angron, and he brought these infantry out, and I killed most of the squad. Everyone it's like, yes, it's Terminator shooting, but it's like, if I reroll these dice, I'm going to hit on these these chain cannons, and if these combi weapons roll 6s, I played my buddy a couple weeks ago, and he brought out 10 breachers in front of my my Terminators, and I picked up 8 of them in Overwatch, and he's just like, what is this? And I'm like,
yeah. And it's one of the things, that's one of the reasons why that I believe Terminators are so much better than an 8-bound, because if you got 6 8-bound on an objective, all your opponent has to do is put like 3 Marines on there, and they've denied you. Correct. Whereas if you've got 10 Terminators, first of all, they need to put 5 Marines on there, and second of all, you can overwatch them when they try to, and you can get, so it makes it so much harder for them to take objectives off of you. And if you've got Angron nearby for reroll hits on that Overwatch, it's just gravy. It's so good.
No, it's you can almost make, and I know you're not a fan of the Forge Fiends, but like you can almost make like a mini castle around Angron where you have like Terminators and Forge Fiends on turn 2, and it's like they're re-rolling everything. Yeah. And so it's like you can kind of push up, and that's a lot of firepower with rerolls, for 145 points for a Forge Fiend. It's like, if you have Angron on your list, you're going to kill some stuff.
Yeah,
so, I mean,
I've actually been playing around a little bit with a single Forge Fiend and just putting it in reserve. So basically what you do is you send Angron up one side of the board, and then you bring it on from strategic reserves near Angron and blast and get your rerolls to hit. So I've been playing a little bit with that idea, but I always end up looking at it and I'm like, oh, but that could be more Terminators.
It could be a unit of 8-bound, to be honest with you, because it's the same. It's the same points pretty much. Yeah. And you're not wrong. I mean, the reroll the ones to wound, like,
is very good.
You do miss that as far as like not having them in that extra scout threat. But I don't know. I mean, it's the cool thing is with Terminators, it really opens up a different play style where it's like you do now have a lot of different, ways to go. You have some shooting and you're super durable, so you can kind of fill in a lot of those gaps. You don't always have to bring 3 bricks of Terminators. If you have a good, well-rounded list you know how to play with, you could start throwing in some 8-bound, and that makes a big difference.
Yeah. So. I think, if I'm being completely honest, I think the best way to do it is probably 2 units of Terminators and 1 unit of 6 Exalted 8-bound. I just really like the hashtag 30nators, so I'm just like, nah, I'm just running 30nators. 20 nators and 8-bound doesn't sound as good, so...
It doesn't, but like you said, the more Terminators you bring, the more you want more of them. Like
Correct.
they're just such a durable, efficient. They're just a killing machine. It's like there's so much damage output from those things, and your opponent really just can't kill enough of them. And it's like they're so good. And it's like I've played too many games with like 8-bound and berserkers, especially in my meta, where they just get mopped up,
Yeah.
But like giving me a 2-up, 4-up, with cover maybe sometimes it's like I'll take that all day, and I can still hit like a truck because those things hit hard.
Oh, and just the look on your opponent's face when you throw 10 Terminators out there. They fire their whole army at it, and there's still 2 left. Like, they kill 8 of them. And then they look across the board, and you're like, there's another 20 of these motherfuckers. Like, and your opponent just looks so thoroughly defeated. They're just like, I guess I lose. I can't kill these things.
You really do, like, watch, like, the light just go out of their eyes. When they just threw the kitchen sink at them, and there's 2 guys left, and they're just like, shit. It's like,
and then those 2 guys go in with +1 to hit and +1 to wound, and just like
yes, and that's the funniest part is like I'm almost like glad like when when you lose an 8-bound, you're like shit, like I'm like that much less lethal. When I lose a Terminator, I'm like, it's time to go, baby. Like if I'm getting in, it's like now we're hitting on 2s, and it's like you're in trouble.
Yeah,
Now we're like mini custodies.
Yeah, the amount of times that I'll rapid ingress my Terminators, I'll come out about to charge somebody, I'll look at them like, would you like to Overwatch? And they'll be like, yeah, all right. And I'll be like, yep, because they'll kill like 1 or 2. And I'm like, yep, now I'm going to hit you even harder, you fool. Like,
you're like, I'll let you borrow a CP to grenade my Terminators.
Yeah, that's so good. I love it. Do your objective markers ever get lost behind terrain or other models and become difficult to see? Do they ever get bumped and accidentally moved during a game? And do they ever spark arguments about distances? Well, not anymore. Introducing the blog for the Blood God, not even remotely patented neoprene objective markers. Made from the same material as astronaut suits, or maybe military equipment, or probably neither of those things, this 2mm thick neoprene synthetic rubber is tear resistant, water resistant, and is designed to last. But that's not all. The blog for the Blood God, not even remotely patented neoprene objective markers come in a variety of different designs and styles to suit any faction represented in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. These objective markers are a perfect gift for yourself or a friend, and are a perfect way to flex and show your opponent that not only are you a smarter, cooler, and better 40k player than them, but you also have more disposable income than they do. For the low price of $25, you'll get not 1, not 2, but 6 neoprene objective markers, perfectly designed for 10th edition Warhammer 40k. Follow the links in the description of this video to pick up your set today. All right, so tell us a little bit of a breakdown of your matches. So who you versed, if you can remember what the mission is. You don't have to go into too much detail, just sort of a bit of summary.
I'm a little fuzzy on the missions, but I know my first one was, and I mean, this sounds bad as a competitive player, but like with my list, it was like a lot of times I was like, what's the mission? I don't care. I'm just going to throw Terminators at you and just, I'm going to win on primary. Yeah. I don't care what the mission is. But no, I played guard on stream. He's the guy that actually does Meta Monday. Just super, super nice guy. I did kind of feel bad because he wasn't expecting, the amount of heat that the list brings. And so, I was able to get Angron in one, on his Dorn, and, Angron killed 2 Dorns, that game, and it was just like nice. I remember on stream they were just like, "Oh my god, like I've never seen Angron kill this many things before," and I'm just, you feel bad because you're just like, this is on stream. I'm sorry, buddy. Like I know this hurts. But no, he was, a really good guy. Great competitor. The second game I played, who was it? I played a Sisters player.
Okay.
And that was actually the scariest game that I played because I wasn't on it was like the GW, the Urban Chaos ruins where I didn't have a lot of cover.
Yeah.
And, even though I scouted my Terminators, which is another good reason to bring in Vicadus, is sometimes it's like you can start your Terminators on the line if they don't have stopping, your scout, and you can just kind of push them into cover right away, so that you don't have to worry about another 10-man blob to hide behind terrain. Well, I didn't really have that. And so he went first. I scouted my Terminators up, and he picked up the whole squad. Like, he moved up everything and just killed everything. And I'm like, uh-oh. Like,
I'm assuming Bringers of Flame, Castigators, Morven Valve.
No, it was
it
was the one where you get the extra miracle dice. I forget the name of that one.
Okay.
It was 2 Exorcists, 3 Castigators, no characters really. It was a scary list. Like, the Castigators hurt, the Exorcists obviously hurt. But by the time I was able to get, again, I don't think he anticipated how fast the Terminators could move. And so they were able to I had one squad of 10 that were able to just run through the middle of his line and just get into his, backfield and start, punching tanks and, exorcists and touching things so that they couldn't, really shoot, and they were a lot less effective. That one unit of Terminators was definitely MVP. Angron somehow, he basically came in, killed some stuff on the middle objective, and failed the first 2 saves against hunter killer missiles that brought him down to 6 wounds. And I'm like, oh, he's toast. And somehow he saved literally every other dice roll of the 4-up, and it was like my opponent was just dying inside, just going, I need to kill Angron, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I just keep rolling 4 survives. He didn't die, and so I got, I'd say I got pretty lucky, because by Angron living, I was able to pretty much close it out after that, because the Terminators were already in there killing tanks, and then Angron was pretty much doing what he was doing. So it won that game. And then I played John Holbrook, who won the tournament against the Green Tide, and he's a really good player, and he brought the meta nasty Green Tide list where it's the weird boys and the pain boys, and he got turn 1, and I didn't send Angron, so I pretty much kind of lost on primary, because it was a slug match, but Green Tide just has so much more OC, and that's the only, I'd say, drawback as far as the Terminators is you lose a lot of OC. 1 OC per Terminator is fine, but a lot of players right now are bringing a lot of horde lists with OC 2 per, so it's you can kill a lot of stuff with them, but you better make sure that you have enough guys on the objective, or else you're going to lose the OC war. So I did lose that game. The 4th game I played against a Dark Angels player who brought all the knights, and he brought Lionel Johnson, and it was a pretty normal, very durable list, and he played it very cagey. And he kind of set up his things to where he wanted me to charge his his brick of Deathwing Knights, so that Lionel Johnson could heroic intervention and fight first and stuff. And so I knew what he wanted me to do, and so I basically brought Angron over, and I charged something on the side. I think it was one of his vehicles that and he heroically intervened with his Deathwing Knights into Angron, which gave me the opportunity with my Terminators to kind of charge the backside of those Deathwing Knights, and then use some of them to kind of pile into the line to kind of get around the fights first. But before I did that, the Terminator shot into Lion, and with the combi weapons, they plinked off 3 or 4 wounds off of them, and
nice.
Like you said, that's all you need.
Sometimes you just need to take a handful of wounds off of something. With the shooting, and then you finish it off in combat. It's amazing.
I killed him to the wound with. I was able to get I think 4 or 5 Terminators in there, because most of them had to kind of go into the Deathwing Knights that they charged, and then the rest I was able to kind of swing them into the Lion. But I was just these are this better go through, and he didn't roll on his saves, but it was like, man, I was like, if they were just 8-bound and I didn't have the shooting, he would have lived, and then he would have it would have been probably a different game.
Yes.
But turn one, it's like he lost the line and he lost a bunch of Deathwing Knights, and then from there I was able to just kind of steamroll. But my fifth game was against a guard player who brought the pretty much the entire Cadian army with him. He had 2 Earthshakers, which actually with Terminators absolutely sucks.
Yeah,
because you're losing
that
2 inches on
movement
everything.
is painful. It's very painful.
Oh, I told the guy, I was like, if I hadn't gone first, you probably would have won, because I started 2 of my Terminators in reserve, so I'm like, I'm not going to play the move 5, advance 4 the rest of the game. You're just you're crawling on your belly up the field. I was able to pretty much throw the first unit of Terminators in there in Vacatus, and then I think Angron actually was able to go in there too. And then from there it was pretty much just a kind of him shooting everything into Terminators, which, and if they were Berserkers or they were 8-bound, they wouldn't have lived. So the Terminators were able to basically just hang in there, because there was a bunch of last cannon shots. It's like, yeah, you might kill a couple Terminators with these little 2s, 3s, getting through, but the last cannon or the plasma shots and the melta shots, everything that they had, it was I was spiky, but I had enough to basically hang in there and and sustain. So I was able to once it was back to my turn again, it's like you're killing a lot more guys with the shooting and the and the punching and stuff like that.
Even
so
just being able to shoot the guardsman squads and then charge the tanks that's behind it, stuff like that. The 8-bound can't do. And then 4-up invulnerable saves are a hell of a drug. It's so addictive.
It's so hard to go back to 8-bound when it's 2-up versus a 3-up, 5-up, where you're just Terminators are just so much more durable.
Yeah, you park that Terminator unit in cover somewhere and just look at your opponent and be like, good luck, mate. Good luck.
You just have the confidence where you're just there's just so much, meat here. You're not going to be able to punch or shoot through it. It's with an 8-bound unit, it's I don't have the confidence usually with the way I roll that they'll live. The Terminators, 100%. They'll stay in there, and I might be surprised and just fail a whole bunch of saves, and I might have 2 guys left, but I'm you just put everything into these idiots, and I still have 2 more full squads of them, and they look at my reserve tray and they're like, crap. Yeah.
Especially because once you've identified whatever it was in their list that killed your Terminators on that first turn, you then go, hey, Angron, go deal with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Angron smash, and then the Terminators come on. And they're like, well,
that's all it is.
The tank commander or the Dawn or whatever it was that was killing Terminators is now dead.
Yeah.
And then more Terminators rock up, and your opponent's just like,
yeah. No, and then the rest of the list just scores points. You'd be surprised how little my spawn and my jackals really did the entire weekend, because the Terminators were just doing so much of the heavy lifting. I didn't really they might have had to go in a little bit, and kind of do a little mid game, trading. But other than that, it was they're just scoring points. They're just sticking objectives and just doing what they're supposed to be doing. So, and then the last game I actually played the AdMech. What's that list with the super durable? It's the one with call. It's the what's the name of them? I forget the name of them.
The breaches or the
not the breachers. No, it's all the Sicarians.
The dragoons or whatever they're called.
All the rangers and basically it was the -1 to hit. everything, and then he had a whole bunch of stuff that was he had some Rustalkers, he had Rangers, everything was in range of the Dune Walker, so it's everything had I think he might have played a little bit of that, because I looked at it afterwards, because it was these guys are really hard to kill. I'm this is AdMech,
Yeah.
And I think he misunderstood the bubble around the Dune Walker, where it was model per model within it. He was stringing out his entire unit and taking the the 4-up save on all of them, and I'm just going, AdMech has a 4-up invul save on all of their, but it didn't matter. I was still somehow I was still able to like put enough resources into it where I was like, I still won, and it was just it was enough. But yeah, it was just horde lists. Day 3 or day 2 was just like horde list after horde list, and it was just like ugh. And it's like I get it. Like I have 30 Terminators, so it's like I have the Cull the Horde
Yeah.
secondary. You can run that against me, but like you're running literally like 120 bodies. I'm running. You know what I mean? So
There's something really satisfying when you have a really low model count, like 30 Terminators, and your opponent has like 120, and you're like, cool,
Yes.
each one of these Terminators needs to kill like 5 guys, and then you send a unit in and they kill like 5 to 6 guys each, and you're like, this is cool.
Yeah.
This is really cool.
No, it is. The Sisters player I played after he picked up the first Terminator unit, in one go, which really did surprise me. He asked me, he's like, how many points was that? And I was like, that was 360 points of guys that you just killed.
Yeah.
Right there. So
Yeah.
congratulations.
It's a decent size of your army, like a decent chunk out of your army.
Right.
Yeah, so that's awesome, man. That sounds like a bunch of really hard games, but also a bunch of really fun games, which is exactly what you want.
No, it was a blast.
Which game would you say was your favorite? Did you have a favorite?
Believe it or not, it was well the I know John Holbrook now, just from playing in the the Utah scene, who played the Orc list. He was just it was our last game, day 1. We did a shot before the game, and we were just yeah. And I was like, at that point, usually I get kind of second game. I'm just like, if I'm rolling into my third, and I'm just like, just sweating my butt off. It was like a close game. I just played with that system player. I was just like, oh, good, it's you. I get to like have fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, we joked and stuff like that, and there was hard feelings at all or anything like that. I was like, I was happy for him that he won the tournament like that. And then actually I think Andrew Cox is his name, the guy that played the guard. He was just a really good dude. Like he was like really into his list, and like all of his stuff was like really well painted.
Sure. So what about your list going forward? Is there any ideas there that you might want to do change-wise? Introducing different elements, removing certain elements?
I'm not ready to drop Angron yet. He's still too much of a force multiplier. I know he's expensive, and you can get a lot, for 435 points. But like, I mean, Karn and a unit of Berserkers would be really good. I'm still want to try out Forge Fiends and see how that works. But I want to include, Angron on those lists and with the Forge Fiends, because it's like I want to be able to, because those are the lists I'll probably play a little more. And I'll have Angron, with bring up the Forge Fiends, stage the Terminators, so that my turn 2 I can just kind of, go, but also have, a lot of shooting if I'm going to bring the Terminators, because it's like, they have a lot of shooting too. So it's like, I don't know if I want to like play it like a castle, but like I have the option to.
Yeah.
So, that wouldn't be a bad idea. But no, if I did drop Angron, I think Karn and Berserkers would be really good. Probably, like you said, I have, played around with like bringing a couple 8-bound just for the rerolls the wound and a couple extra, threats.
Yeah. Well, one of the sneaky advantages you'll find if you do experiment with Karn is that if you have Karn in a Rhino and it's hidden behind a wall, and your opponent draws Bring It Down or Assassinate, it's really hard for them to get them. Because Karn inside a Rhino behind a wall is really hard.
Right.
Whereas when you throw Angron out and your opponent draws Bring It Down and Assassinate, they just look at Angron and they're like, well, I guess he's gonna fucking die, right? Like, so there's some times where you hide that, and it really messes with your opponent's ability to score their points, which is a lot of fun as well.
Yeah. No, 100%.
And so we're looking at potentially getting a data slate in December. There's rumors going around that that's coming out in December. Do you have any predictions or wish list items for that?
Well, I mean, we already got pretty much shellacked unnecessarily, I think. It's weird. I don't know why Angron went up 20 points. Like, it was just a random, like, World Eaters weren't like tearing up the scene at the moment. So like to all of a sudden get an extra 20 points after all this time, like he hasn't gone up one time this entire edition, I don't think. So it was weird for that to happen. I think the Master of Executions hike was a little unnecessary.
Oh, especially when you look at a Judicia and you're like, but he does the same thing but almost better, and he can be attached to better units, and he's so much cheaper, and you're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I 100% agree with that one.
There are so many like units in the game right now that are like the characters that are like 70, 80 points that are much more of a force. Like, Fights First is good, but like the problem is like, I don't think we're going to get any more price hikes, because it's like World Eaters. The problem is like we just don't have enough. So it's like if you increase the price on everything, it's like we're running out of space. We don't really have much more places to go as far as like what else do we want to bring.
Yeah, I would personally like to see them bring Angron back down, potentially even lower than what he was before. But change his resurrection rules, so instead of coming back at full health, he comes back with 8 wounds. Because then
100% agree with you.
Then you can bring him back, and your opponent, if you bring him back, your opponent can deal with him a lot easier the second time around. So it's not really like getting back that 435 point unit. And because the problem is they obviously they have to make him expensive and budget for the fact that sometimes you will get him back. But the games where you don't get him back, he's way too expensive. And the games where you do get him back, he's way too cheap. So it's like, if they just made it so that when he comes back, maybe when he comes back, he's below that halfway point, so he has the -1 to hit debuff on him. And that way, when he comes back, he's a shadow of his former self. And that way, people aren't going to be so butthurt when he returns.
Agree. Yeah, I mean, I honestly, like, by the time Angron dies, if you're being a little more careful with him, it's not like an I win button when he comes back, right? It's like he'll do a lot of damage, but it's you have to still bring him back in, whether it's like the end of turn 3 or bottom of turn 4, whatever it is, and it's like by then it's like you're kind of in trouble if you already lost him. Like it's so it's not. Yeah, I agree with you. It was just a weird price hike, and it was the first time where it made me go like, do I want to still continue to bring him? Because it does feel a little silly for 435 points sometimes to be like, gosh, this is an expensive model. You can get a lot you can get a lot more stuff without him, but it's like, I don't know, he's still such a good
He's a lad. He's such a lad.
He is.
I could see a world where he does complement the Terminators quite well. I could see a world where Lord Invocatus goes up, because his buff for scout moves is pretty wild. Either that, or make it so that the scout moves is like pick one friendly unit and the unit he's attached to or something, instead of picking just 2. Because there's almost no reason to ever attach him to anything these days. And I think they should incentivize that a little bit more.
Yeah, it's funny. I have a kind of a hot take. It's like between the Juggalord and Invocatus, I almost think that like they should just change them to be just kind of like maybe lone op characters, where it's like they just there to give up. So, like, until we get berserkers on Juggernaut, it's like it just bring those guys. It's just too much. I put with Apeon because you lose ruins. You're not going to put berserker. How do you do that? So it's like we have a lot of this for like things like we need a vac, need something to generate so many things they don't have. And I feel like those guys feel that they just need to probably be in the rules. So I down the road would like to see this until we get like
absolutely. Well, speaking of like talking about getting Juggernaut mounted berserkers and things like that, tell us a little bit about your predictions and your wish list items for the upcoming Codex. Now, but I'm going to throw a few out there first. There's a lot of people saying they want Red Butchers, and you would think, as somebody renowned for running Terminators, that I would be one of them. I desperately don't want Red Butchers, because I worry that they're going to take away the guns. They're going to give them just 2 combat weapons, like the Horus Heresy ones. And the problem with that is, the second you do that, you kill the unit, because now it's just a different version of 8-bound. Part of what makes that unit interesting and exciting is the shooting. So I'm worried that they'll do that, and I'm also thinking
Yeah.
with Juggernaut-mounted Berserkers, as cool as that would be, I struggle to see how they would be notably different than 8-bound as well. Like, they'd be a fast, hard-hitting, kind of tough melee unit. It's like, but
Yeah.
that's exactly what 8-bound, Exalted 8-bound are and 8-bound are. I want to see something that's notably different. But what are your sort of thoughts on the new codex? What would you like to see in terms of units, detachments, all that sort of stuff?
I think they obviously are going to do the Juggerlords, the Berserkers on them. I think they are.
Yeah.
It's like they've already opened up that can of worms, so it's
Yeah.
like, it's, of course they're going to like come out with the unit that complements, the two leaders that like don't have anything really to lead. The problem with it is it's like it's mounted, so it's like you can't run through ruins. It's like, so I don't care how fast they are. If I can't run through a ruin like an 8-bound can, I'm still not going to take them. So it's, unless they're like actually cheap, and maybe if those are our scout pieces to kind of counter or infiltrate. Sorry, if those can like actually counter other infiltrate, that would actually be a good thing, because I do think we desperately need infiltrate in our army, because we just get like a good player will 100% just shove into our deployment zone, and then there's just nothing we can do about it. If they get turn one, it's like we got to fight through a screen before we can do anything, and that sucks. I think if we got like some like surgeon model, I think that would be cool. I think like a medic that brought back, either you could either put him with the 8-bound. That would be actually pretty big. Then you could be a little bit more, I don't know, play a little more loose with your 8-bound. I think that would be neat. I do, like I said, I think they should probably change, at least maybe Lord Invocata should get a lone operative, keep like give the 2 units scout, but then maybe get something else. I mean, I'm not going to say we should get everything like Vect or like a way to generate, but we don't have any of those. It's like, for God's sakes, like, let us take Cypher in our, because it's like, why can't he come with the world leaders? He can go with the CSM, right? Like, so
and he's literally the lone op. Like in the entire narrative, he is one of the most like solitary operative characters in the lore. He would 100% follow world leaders around if that suited his agenda. So put him in.
He doesn't care, and it's like, he's already like going around with CSM and like being a CSM player as well. Cypher is just such a good 90-point model. It's like he does so much for that army. It's almost hard to go back to world leaders, like kind of left without all of the fun stuff. Where you're like, we're really cool. We have a lot of cool data sheets and stuff, but man, it's like we're missing all the tricks.
I'd really like to see a Agents of Chaos Codex in the same way that there's the Agents of Imperium, and that would have Cypher, Traitor Guard, that would have probably have Be'lakor in it, and Vashtor, all of those characters that don't like really fit in anywhere, but kind of can fit in everywhere.
I think, I mean, playing with Terminators, and then sneaking in Forge Fiends. It's like world leaders shouldn't not have shooting. It's like I get that we're a melee army, but in order to play 40k, you need to be able to play all the phases. Get it? Like, you want us to be really good at one, and that's fine. But like, we need a little more. They took away the Havocs. They took away a lot of stuff that would have just rounded us out, and just having things that give us more options and tools, I think is.
That's actually the one thing that I think. The one thing that I think Juggernaut-mounted Berserkers could add to the Codex that would be really interesting is if they do mortal wounds on the charge, because that way you could be like, okay, there's a Rhino there. I move my Juggernaut Berserkers out. They throw a grenade at it. Then they charge it. They do impact mortals, which blows up the transport. Then they can pile into the stuff that fell out and fight that. That would be really cool.
Be good.
And the Blood Crushers in Chaos Demons, they do impact mortals. So if they put that same rule on, now you'd be like, okay, they're like 8-bound. They have to go around terrain, which sucks. But when they hit transports, they pop them. That would be really cool.
Right. It would almost be funny if they did like Berserkers on Juggerlords, but like they just have these big giant mounted chain cannons on them. So it's actually a shooting cavalry. It's not a it's not a melee cavalry, right? And you're just like, that kind of defeats the purpose, but it works.
What about
That would
things like detachments, enhancements, stratagems? Is there anything
be,
in particular you would like to see?
I do think that the Berserker Glaive needs to come down in points if we're
Yeah.
talking advancement. I think 25 points is kind of it's kind of high now that we're it's no longer the beast that it was.
Yeah.
I think the helm is good. I do think that the favorite of Corn, obviously, it's like that lost a lot, being only like once per turn. It kind of like lost a little bit of its luster. I don't know. I mean, I think it really depends on what attachments look like. I definitely want to see another Disciples of the Red Angel. I definitely want to see like another like another detachment where it's like, eight bound and an Angron, and it's like obviously like if we're talking, wish list as far as characters goes, I do think we need a character, probably a Terminator Lord,
Yeah.
so maybe to give them something cool. I don't know what that would be because they already kind of like have a lot, but like I don't know, maybe +1 to advance, +1 to charge, something like that. That would be a cool, right? Like just ensure one of my units is getting in no matter what.
Yeah.
Maybe like a reroll charge or something like that. I think would be neat. And as far as having something that I'm not going to say like the eight bound need a lord, but I mean, I think that you could probably like the Jugger Lord, could probably use, an enhancement that, might be an aura or something like that, that might incentivize, we're already using them as kind of like lone op characters almost. They run around having more aura stuff.
Yeah.
Actually be kind of cool and kind of round out those characters. So,
Yeah. Hell yeah. All right,
yeah.
man. Well, that more or less rounds out all the questions I had lined up. Is there anything you wanted to chat about before we close it off?
No, I guess, where are you at with your list? Like, what's your kind of like now that you've been playing with it a lot more. So like, what is your, I
Um,
guess like, what is your keeps?
so I've experimented with a lot of different variations on that 30 Terminator list, but I keep circling back to Khan in the Rhino with the
Mhm.
Berserkers and then
Yeah,
the 30 Terminators. That's because we play a lot of WTC style
right.
terrain down here.
You have to. Yeah,
And when you every time I put Angron in, I'm always frustrated that he has to
right.
deploy so far back because he can't get shot,
100%.
and then he has to go all the way around, and your opponent just figures out where he can go, and then they place something there that they
Right,
don't care about, and then all of a sudden he has to go further back, and it's just
right.
really frustrating. I found him really frustrating to play, whereas Khan in
I
the
would
Rhino
too.
is very liberating because you put
It's
him right
perfect.
in the edge of the terrain, and he can just fucking go.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, I'm toying with the idea of swapping him out for a Master of Executions with the Glaive. I'm just trying to figure out how do I find those points. It could be by turning one of the Terminator units into Exalted 8 bound because they're a little bit cheaper,
yeah,
and that frees up the points to turn Khan into a Master of Executions. So
yeah.
that's one of
I
the ideas that I'm sort of toying with.
I do think there's a sweet spot with 20 Terminators as opposed to the 30 because
Yeah,
there's a lot of places you can go with 20 and then you can really round. Like when I've built 20 and then added in all the other stuff, I'm like, man, this is a really well-rounded list.
yeah,
The problem is always like, man, I really want that third unit of Terminators. So it's
yeah,
like we always go back to like where we started, but like yeah, I mean you could give me a list of like 20 Terminators and then take a whole bunch of other stuff and I'm happy,
yeah.
So
Yeah, I think I'm actually working on a video right now because a lot of people ask me things like that, like how would you write a list with 20? How would you write a list with 10? Because some people are building towards having 30, so they've already got 10. They want to write a list. They want to start playing it straight away.
right,
So I might do
right.
a little bit of work on
Yeah,
refining those three types of lists: a 10 nader, a 20 nader, and a 30 nader, and then
yeah,
sort of put that out there. It might be a good way to do it. And then I'll sort of start. Maybe I'll take one to each event and sort of get some
yeah,
results on the board with those
yeah.
lists as well. Could be something interesting.
I still think 30 Terminators is a meme to a lot of people, and I get it. Like it's
Yeah,
it does seem more like this is crazy, and it's not. It works, but it's like you got to know what you're doing.
yeah,
But you could also take 10, or you could also take 20, and do just as well with those if you're already comfortable with playing the rest of rest of the list.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I'm
So,
convinced that almost any World Eaters list that has a unit of 6 Exalted 8-bound, if you took that
Yeah.
out and put 10 Terminators in, the list just gets better. It's
100%.
just better. Like, and
100%.
I don't really care what your plan was with those 8-bound. Like, if your plan was, they sit behind a wall in my deployment zone and then they threaten the midfield objectives. That's the plan. Well, it's like, well, guess what? 10 Terminators does that really well. Or if the plan was they start off the board and they rapid ingress in and then they go and charge, well, guess what? Terminators do that really well as well.
Right.
So they sort of can just fill the same role, but they add so much flexibility to the role. Like I played a Votan guy the other day, and he put a big unit of those berserks, the ones that fight on death. He put them out into the middle objective, and I was just like, okay, cool. Terminators move out and shoot them, and I killed I killed like half the unit. And he was just like, fuck, because now, and then I charge him in. It didn't matter that he fought on death. Because
go ahead. Fight on death. I don't care.
Whereas if that was 8-bound, I would have been like, how do I dislodge them from that
objective? How do I get rid of it?
There's nothing I can do. So I think the Terminators just, if anybody's watching this and they're thinking, how do I build 10 Terminators? How do I build 20? Just take a list that has 6 Exalted 8-bound in it, swap them for Terminators. You might have to, finagle the points a little bit to get them to fit, but... I think that's generally the advice.
I mean, remember at the beginning of 10th edition where we looked at our codex and we were like, or index, and we're like, I'm not bringing these Terminators. We have 8-bound. Like, why would I bring these Terminators? Like, the rules are like, you know what I mean?
So I actually, it's really funny. So I got the rules like a couple of days before I got the points for 10th edition. Right?
Sure.
So I had all the rules for all the World Eaters units, all their data sheets, but I didn't know how many points everything was.
Yeah.
So I actually did a review. I recorded a review of every data sheet, not knowing the points.
Right.
And then like a year and a half goes by, and I've now started running these Terminators. And I was the other day, I was like, I want to go back and watch my review of the Terminator data sheet from a year and a half ago and see whether I was, what my thoughts were back then. And it was really funny because back then I was saying things like, hey, these guys are good. They've got shooting. Like, you can do stuff with them. They're not that slow. You put neg 1 damage on them and all of a sudden they're pretty fucking tough. Like, yeah. So
I think the problem is that we'd since we got the 8-bound so late in 9th edition, and we were still kind of like, we were still in our like honeymoon phase with all the 8-bound, and we'd just gotten our codex like right before 10th edition. I think it was always, the thought of like swapping any of them out for Terminators was like unthinkable way. Like I need my 8.
The metaphor I like to use is the standard like teen movie trope of the nerdy girl that takes off her glasses and you realize she's actually hot, right?
Right.
Like, that's the Terminators to me, all right?
Yeah.
And then the 8-bound are like the sorority girls, the ones that everybody, the cheerleaders, everybody think they're
everybody else,
and they bully the nerdy girl with the glasses, and they bully her and everybody, but halfway through the movie, the main character realizes, oh my god, I'm actually in love with the nerdy chick. That's how I feel about the Terminators. I saw them take their glasses off, and I was like, damn.
Then you show up to the prom at the end of the movie with your 30 Terminators.
And exactly.
Like,
and everyone's jealous.
Okay. Okay.
100%. That's
all right. You got 4th place.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for your time, mate. I really do appreciate it. And it's probably close to 1 a.m. there now, so I'll let you go.
All good.
And good luck at your next tournaments. If you keep bringing the 30nators, definitely keep me up to date with
I will.
Going.
I'll keep you posted on how I'm doing. And I appreciate you having me on. So this was a good conversation.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Talk soon. Cheers, mate. See ya. Alrighty, guys. As always, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, head over to the newly revamped blogforthebloodgod.com. There's a ton of information there on how you can show your support for the channel, whether it be by picking up some of our new branded merchandise, our objective markers, our t-shirts, our dice, those sorts of things, or by joining our Patreon and Discord community where you can get one-on-one coaching, you can hang out, you can talk shit, and have a lot of fun over there and make a lot of friends. So if that sounds interesting to you, head over to Patreon, check that out, but make sure you check out the newly revamped blogforthebloodgod.com. Thanks again, guys, and I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.
Walk for the Blood God.